location of prominence. And I guess the last thing I would add, if it's not on here, is I think the first two signs have small plaques that recognize the donation, and I feel like this one really needs an interpretive sign to accompany it to explain why it was selected and its relationship to the other two pieces, and a little bit of information about Mr. Hosey and his art, so that we have some context for folks that are seeing it, because it will be a change. We don't have art. I don't believe we have much in any of our parks in South Richland down there. So this is an image that shows you, last time we brought it to you, we showed you how many Julies tall it was, which I believe it's 3 Julies tall, 4 Julies tall. So it'd be a fairly large sculpture. The difference in this image and what it would look like in real life is it'll actually have a concrete base around it underneath the sculpture itself. And then it's pointed in such a way that it'd actually be kind of aiming up at the summit. So if you're familiar with Trailhead Park, just as you come in the parking lot, you enter the gravel trailhead and then it curves to the right. This would be in kind of a little pocket of space just as the trail is curving to the right and then heads back up towards the mountain. It would be in an open space there. There's actually a dead tree that we'll remove and put it there. And then this is pretty small to see, but in the right-hand slide, you can see we have kind of a little yellow dotted line surrounding what the sculpture would look like. So that shows you where the placement is. It would be on that north end, just inside from the parking lot. So we want to bring it back to you. The City Council has asked for an update as well, so we provided them a summary of what we just told you tonight and told them we were coming back to you with this information. And ultimately, our recommendation, we support the work that the Arts Commission has done. We feel that there's value in this placement and just an opportunity to provide that unification. So we'd like to bring it to you for any discussion or questions, but staff and Arts Commission recommends that we find a home for this third piece, and this seems to be the most appropriate location.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Bilt.
There's a lot of things that I like about what you said. My original objection was never about the placement, but there was, at the first proposed placement, there was a lack of coordination with some of our partners that you've mentioned already. And that's been rectified completely and to my full satisfaction. The question, the location that you just presented is no different than what you presented us in January, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I thought I recognized all that. I like the orientation of it pointing to the summit, where the objective of where most of the users of the park are going to be heading. So I think that ties in. And what I like most about what you've just told us is the interpretive sign. As an engineer, I don't get art much. I appreciate art, but I need, when I go to a museum, I want somebody telling me about what that piece, because I don't have any intuition about it. And having an interpretive sign, I think, is just going to increase its value so much. I wish we had them at the others, but this one especially. The things that you've noted of tying the city together, especially at this day and age when there's this whole districting discussion seems to want to divide us somehow. I like the idea of tying us together and having art help do that. It is a great idea. Let's make sure the interpretive sign discusses that. And then, of course, the background on Mr. Hosey. So great job. You have my full support.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments? Questions? No? Okay. Well, yes, thank you for your diligence. I think it speaks to good due process, kind of working through all the steps, and when there's hesitation, kind of going back and revisiting. So it's nice to see it so well vetted. Yes, Commissioner Bilt.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to let you finish first, but I did want to ask you about the what needs to be done next. What more needs to be done other than updating council? Are we ready to go?
We are. We have an old quote, so we'll have to update that for the installation. And then on Parks End, we'll be rerouting the irrigation around the sculpture so that it'll be spraying out and not getting hard water on the sculpture, because that would require a lot of cleaning. But other than that, we'll just refresh our quote, and then we'll be able to move forward with installation. I guess the interpretive sign, we'll have to finalize. We'll work with the Arts Commission on that to finalize the details of what that would say as well.
So timeline, potentially next spring?
Yeah, I'm looking for Julie for confirmation, but I think that's realistic.
Yeah, I would think so. By the time we could get the work scheduled with the contractor and refreshed quote, we're likely outside of maybe concrete pouring window, so more likely in the springtime. We've also had the sculpture in storage for quite a while in our laydown yard, so we'll have to inspect that, make sure it is perfect before we erect it, because it'll be a lot harder to powder coat anything when it's up and pointing towards the mountain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much. Last presentation item is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan update. That is a mouthful. And commissioners, you probably noticed, and I'm sure Director Waite will talk about this, how thick this piece of the packet is. It's kind of interesting, though. I started looking, and I was like, maybe I'll print, and I was like, nope. But I was curious. There are a lot of comments from the community, so when you get a chance, it's probably a good thing to browse through and get some of the feedback regarding our parks facilities. So here we go.
All right, John and Lauren, can you hear us?
We can. Yeah, this is John. Can you hear me?
Yes. And
great.
We can see your screen just fine. For our commission, I'm going to do our handoff now to our consultants. You met them in the spring. We're so excited to have them back to give you this update. And it, as you mentioned, it is very large. So just wanted to kind of preface this. We have two components. We'll be reviewing the update with them in this meeting, and then we will adjourn, and we have some more engagement that's more of a workshop format, so that will be happening in the second part of our meeting. But we'll go ahead and do the regular business meeting update now, and then we'll adjourn and move into the workshop after that. And so I'll hand it off to you folks.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm John Phoenix. I am a project manager with MIG, and I've got my colleague Lauren Scott here with us tonight. And we're really excited. We've got a lot to share. Obviously, the packet is a little dense, but hopefully the point of this presentation is to walk you through what is in that packet. In case you want to look through the detail, that's why you have it. But we really want to share some of those highlights. What have we found? You know, what's the progress so far? And then what's coming up next? And then, as Chris mentioned, hopefully we can get through this presentation so we can spend some time having more of a discussion on the things that you'd like to see in this next phase of the project. So our presentation will try to keep things succinct, and I do appreciate the new commissioners. So we want to make sure we have time for questions on anything you see, or if you want to ask us any questions, that's what we're here for. So we'll talk about some of the analysis we've done, the community outreach, which there's quite a bit, the survey, the focus groups, other opportunities. And then, like I said, we'll break and regroup for the discussion at the second section. So we wanted to start off, because we did talk about this when we were last in front of you back in April, about what the purpose of this project is. So this is a comprehensive plan. The city has done a lot of planning for parks and recreation and open space. So going back to the previous plan, 2019, here we are about 6 years later. So we're building on all that work. This isn't starting from scratch, because the city's done a lot of great work. You all have been doing a lot of that. But it's building on all that planning and momentum that's been taking place. But this is a comprehensive plan. We're looking at all of Richland. We're looking at developed parks, natural areas, recreation facilities, recreation programs, maintenance, operation. It truly is comprehensive. It's also long range. So we're looking out at least through the next 6 years, which is something the state wants to see for grant funding purposes. But it goes beyond that because, of course, we're trying to anticipate change down the road. This is a community-based, community-driven plan. So community outreach and public participation is a big part of what is going into the project. We're going to share some of that tonight. And it's a chance to shape the vision for what we want to see this park system become. I just listening tonight so far, hearing a lot of great things that are in the works. So now is the chance to stay in front of that and shape that vision. We'll get into some specifics. We talked about this back in April a little bit. What are the types of improvements that you want to see? Definitely, what are some things we heard from the community that the community wants to see happen? But we'll also look at maintenance and then priorities. I think that came up last April. How do we, phase these things and prioritize them? And then last but not least, we'll have an action plan to implement and to provide some funding options for implementation. So project progress, we've done quite a bit. We still have a ways to go, but we were back in April, of course, really gathering a lot of information, looking at parks and facilities, recreation programs, really getting a good sense of what's going on today. Public engagement really took place this summer, and we just wrapped up the survey. Lauren's going to share results of that. Really great turnout. We found tons of comments, as you can probably see, a lot of great ideas and opportunities. And then the technical analysis, which is where we are currently. So some of that we're sharing tonight, some of that is in progress, and we'll have more information for the next time we meet. So in the future, down the road, this fall into winter, we'll have the specific recommendations, projects. That's what we'll share with you next meeting. And then we'll put all of that together, everything from the inventory through community engagement, through recommendations, into a plan that you'll also see at the final meeting into this winter. So sometime around December, January. Okay, so I'm going to provide some highlights. What have we seen? What have we been doing? And again, want to just kind of whet your appetite on what's going on out there in terms of future planning. So some of this is probably very familiar with you, but just in particular, making sure we are covering, new folks and maybe folks that are joining on the meeting tonight. But Richland has a really impressive park system. So almost 3,000 acres, about 250 acres of that are developed parks. And as Chris was saying earlier, it is important that we categorize these for a number of reasons: maintenance practices, design guidelines and standards, facility types that may or may not work in some of these parks, talking about public art and neighborhood parks, for example, versus a community park. So it is important we get this right. It's also important that we get these numbers correct, because there are a lot of great ways to analyze those numbers as we get into the actual plan. So really incredible park system, and really spanning everything from those larger community parks, neighborhood parks, that are just a walk down the street, special use areas that are like the OHV park, ball fields, etc. And then, of course, almost half of this is natural open space. So what we're doing currently, we don't have the results tonight, but we'll be showing and sharing with you next time, is a more in-depth analysis of the mapping. So how close are some of these parks and facilities to neighborhoods and the people that want to use them? And then the reverse of that, what are some areas in Richland that don't have that great access? So that's something that we'll be diving into more soon. We've taken a look at all of the incredible parks and facilities. I mean, this is a really impressive list. But again, we want to get a really good understanding of what exists to find out maybe what's needed when we hear from the community and from you all. What condition are some of these facilities in? Playgrounds, for example, they have an age limit. So we need to find out what is the age limit, what are some playgrounds that are nearing that lifespan, and then stay ahead of that with a plan to repair and replace over time. This plan is also about the programs and the services the city provides, talking about Ironman, the Fall Carnival. That's just a couple of obviously the bigger ones, but whole host of recreation opportunities for all age groups, ability groups, all sorts of different opportunities. So Richland really has it all. And I think, as Lauren will show in just a minute, we've heard a lot of positive feedback about just how great the system is. And so I think what we're starting to see is, how do we keep that going with more growth and more use of the system? As a longer term plan, of course, we want to know, who are we planning for, not just for now, but next year, the next few years. So we're taking a look at projections, looking out into 2045, for example. So looking out into another 20 years. People are moving. We know that. We look at Badger Mountain area, Horn Rapids, there's a lot of growth taking place. So parks are being built. Chris mentioned, a new design or design change for one of those parks. Those things are happening in real time, and they'll continue to happen down the road. So that's what this plan is going to help the city guide. Okay, just a quick recap. I think most of you we were all together back in April in person, really getting started, and we wanted to hear, what did you want to see out of this plan? What are some things that you love about parks, recreation, and open space in Richland? So we talked quite a bit about that. We also talked about engagement, because we hadn't yet started that. So we're, again, really, really happy to share what we've done so far and who we've heard from. So we're going to build off of this. We've definitely studied these notes from what we heard from you last time, and hopefully we can share how that resonates with what we heard from the community. There's a lot to build off of. We mentioned all the great planning. We were there over the summer for the new playground opening at Howard Amon Park. Just really incredible. I think I took a time-lapse video I shared with Chris of just like how much activity was going on that day. And that, of course, was a unique day. But there's just a lot of opportunity. We hear a lot about how great parks are maintained, not by everybody and not every park, but overall, great parks, well-maintained, people love to use them, great partnerships. I know you all highlighted that last meeting we had. Definitely something that helps the momentum going, both with maintenance, funding, those types of things. And then just thinking ahead, forward-thinking planning. The city's also undertaking the comprehensive plan, the transportation system plan, as part of these longer, broader citywide initiatives, and the parks plan is a third piece of that. There are also some challenges. We spent 2 days with city staff looking through parks. I think after that first day, we met with you and shared some of these highlights, but there's a lot we need to look out for, of course. Natural area management, we talked about last time, the lack of a natural area plan, citywide plan. There's a lot of growth. There are impacts, direct impacts on places like this, places like a developed park with more use. Sometimes there's graffiti, sometimes there's trash. There's barriers to connectivity. Something I mentioned earlier, how does everybody get around the city? Do they have equal access to parks? And then real limitations on, as great as Chris and Julie are and their team, they're stretched thin at times. So those are the types of things that we're going to be help to look at with the future growth and increasing demands. Okay. That was a lot, but I'm going to turn it over to Lauren. Lauren's going to share some highlights, that really dense packet of stuff you have. Lauren's going to share some highlights of what we found from the survey, focus groups, and other opportunities.
Thanks, John, and good evening, commissioners. So we've done a few different outreach activities for phases 1 and 2, in addition to the meeting with you all that John just talked about back in April. This included community interviews or focus groups with different user groups and representatives of various parks and recreation organizations. And next slide, please, John. These attendees were grouped by different topic areas, including accessibility, trails and conservation, large events, youth sports, and city partners. And we received a lot of great feedback from these groups, as all of these people are familiar with Richland's park system. They're active in it. They're seeing, day-to-day on the ground things and could share a lot of insights with us for this plan. We also prepared ambassador toolkits, which were distributed by the city and included some short questions on park use and some interactive pages that city contacts could then take back to their different user groups and complete. And then we also just completed the online community survey. Next slide. And so just touching on the survey format briefly, it was live for close to 3 weeks in August. It included 17 questions focused on how people use the park system and what they'd like to see changed or improved in the long term, as well as some demographic questions so we can better understand who we reached in the Richland community. Next slide, please. City staff were amazing at promotion. The survey was promoted in a variety of ways, including press and other media releases, interviews, in-person staff outreach at events like the Farmers Market and the 52 and 25 park tours. There were postcards and flyers. The survey was advertised on reader boards. It was sent out through existing city contacts and subscription lists. So just really comprehensive promotion for this survey. In total, there were 1,159 people who clicked into the survey, and this number represents people who did anything from view the intro page to go through the entire survey and click submit in the end. Of that number, we got a total of 818 fully completed surveys. And as typical for online surveys, we did do a data quality check for potential bot responses. We did not find any, as that risk is much lower for surveys that don't offer some type of financial incentive at the end. In terms of who responded, a lot of people were frequent park users. A third of respondents said they visited a park daily or almost daily. Another third said they visited parks about once a week. A majority of respondents were Richland residents, and we got a pretty good response from different parts of the city. In terms of age groups, the largest age groups to respond to the survey were those ages 35 to 44 and 65 and older or over. And then households were also evenly split between those that said they had children under 18 living with them or that children were frequent visitors versus those that didn't. And in the very long packet, we did dive into the differences in responses to survey questions based on some of the different demographics reported. And those are in the more detailed survey summary. And so the next few slides identify some preliminary outreach themes based on what we've heard so far. We're about halfway through the process, so these may change, expand, shrink as we get further into the process. But these are just some of the key themes that we're seeing emerge so far. Like John said, the first thing we heard from people was that Richland provides a lot, and that does come with some challenges, and people shared those with us. But from focus groups to the survey responses, there were a lot of people expressing their appreciation for the system and what it offers, and city staff as well. And another key theme was that focus group attendees were pretty consistent in identifying physical barriers to park access, like poor sidewalks or trail connectivity or unsafe walking or biking conditions. And this was also echoed in both open-ended responses in the survey, as well as some specific questions about park access. 86% of survey respondents said they typically drive to a park. There was also a question that asked how long it would take people to walk to their nearest park, and almost 3/4 of respondents said it would take them 15 minutes or less, but that still leaves a quarter who said that they can't. Some open-ended responses also noted that certain features or amenities weren't available at parks near them, and so it necessitated them driving to a park that's further away. And like John said, this is something that we'll dive into more with mapping city park access points in the needs assessment and conducting a 15-minute walkshed analysis that incorporates different barriers like highways or the rivers to help show there are areas of the city that have a park within a 15-minute walk or a quarter mile of their house. And of course, a significant component of Richland's park system is natural areas. Focus groups discuss this, in particular, the Trails and Conservation Focus Group that shared a lot of specific concerns and challenges with maintaining and enhancing Richland's natural areas. They noted the pressures that growth and just overall public use can place on natural areas, some differences in management and maintenance practices, especially along river corridors that could be implemented, the difficulty in managing invasive species, climate change impacts that will impact the health of natural areas, and then the cost of acquiring and maintaining natural areas or trail connections. And general online community survey respondents also noted their appreciation for nature in Richland's park system. 57% answered that a primary reason why they go to the park is to be surrounded by trees or wildlife plants. We did also hear concerns about safety and cleanliness, including some concerns about camping and unsafe behaviors in parks. Community survey respondents did have a few ideas for how to improve this, including additional lighting, increased city staff or uniformed officer presence, and security cameras. And a chunk of open-ended responses were about how the city can better support the park system. We're focused on park maintenance and cleanliness and parks safety and security. In terms of amenities, having more shade and restrooms at parks came through strongly in the online survey responses. 35% of responses to a question about top park improvements picked better comfort amenities like restrooms and seating. To a question about what amenities would make parks more comfortable and welcoming, 75% of respondents chose shade, and seating and drinking fountains were also chosen as answer options and noted in some open-ended responses as well. And then Richland has some, unique and very popular community events and offers a variety of programming, but there are some challenges with providing these amazing services. And when we look at increasing programming and events in particular, staff capacity and availability is stretched thin already to put on some of Richland's well-known city events or host other events. We also heard from some of the focus group attendees about how existing facility space or site infrastructure is sometimes limiting for their events. And then having the sponsorship partners and resources to meet community need and demand can be challenging sometimes as well. In terms of additional programs people would like to see, the top 3 responses in the online survey were outdoor education and nature programs, cultural or arts programming, and aquatics programs for all ages. And through the online survey, and also noted a little bit in the focus groups, we heard a desire for increased communication and information sharing. 59% of online survey respondents said that a barrier to program participation was just a lack of awareness. And there were some specific comments about having it be easier to find information about parks, events, and programs, as well as improvements to the program registration interface. And then finally, for the last preliminary outreach theme, we heard from the community that there is a desire for more facilities, and what those facilities are and the priorities is a little less clear because we've heard a lot about the different things that could be added to the park system. But in terms of common responses, we're seeing more water access or aquatics facilities, sports fields and courts, more diverse and accessible play features, more trails for walking and biking, and dog parks. And online survey respondents picked unique play areas, community gardens, and pickleball courts as the top 3 facilities they would like to see more of in Richland. And so I'll turn it back over to John to talk a little bit about the brainstorming in the work session and next steps.
Thanks, Lauren. And we're almost done, so I know you probably have some questions for us. But this is really the fun part because we're starting to hear from the community. We've got lots of ideas, and there's so many cool things that that the city can do, that is already doing to make some of these things happen. Probably the biggest one, and these are just some inspirational images to get us thinking about some of those opportunities. The biggest one is just how do we get people to enjoy and use those parks? That can do so many things, bring people together, address social isolation, make parks safer. More people gathering kind of strength in numbers, but making parks more comfortable, more accessible, more welcoming to everybody. Shade, that's come up. Lauren mentioned as a key theme. What can we do creatively with shade? Is it, adding to the tree canopy? Is it this example on the top left that has kind of a interesting shade structure that's integrated into the park? Is it lighting? So many great things we can do with lighting to create art, to create safety, to create an atmosphere. And then other things, access to water. These are some great examples. I'm sure you've all seen lots of others, but these ways to activate parks. It doesn't take a lot. Like this one on the bottom left is a giant Scrabble game. Just get some big pieces of wood. You're having a lot of fun. Bringing activities into parks. Food, obviously, music. Richland's doing a lot of that. So just some ways to get us thinking about how do we meet some of these community needs going forward. All right, so what's coming up next? Well, we've talked a little bit about the analysis we're currently doing. We're still working at that. Great to have a lot of this public participation information, because now we can take a closer look at that, see what it tells us. So we'll be looking at mapping, as Lauren mentioned. Here's an example. You'll see something like this in the future, showing kind of those hot spots or walk sheds to parks and facilities. And then, of course, the alternative to that, which is areas that don't have those great opportunities. We've been meeting, I think, every other week with the city team, talking about these things. We're going to have an extended workshop to go into more detail. But as far as the Parks and Recreation Commission is concerned, we'll be meeting again sometime in November, and we'll have recommendations, projects to share with you. And we'll do some activities around, not only what's on the list, what do we want to change or subtract, but how do we prioritize some of those projects. So we'll have that meeting. We'll have meetings with City Council, of course. And then, as we showed earlier, we'll put all that together in the draft plan. So that's it for the presentation. We know that was a lot, but we want to open it up for questions. And of course, anything more in depth, we'd love to get into that at the discussion section that comes up next. So turn it back over to you all.
Okay, commissioners, do you have anything that you'd like to address now? Or as John was saying, we can get more in depth in the workshop. Yes, Commissioner Bild.
Yeah, I have a question about the survey results. It's been my understanding and perception that one of the deficiencies that we have is the need. We have a need for more multi-purpose fields for lacrosse and soccer. Did that come out in the survey? I didn't see it there. I saw pickleball courts, but I didn't see the multi-purpose fields. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Great question. The multi-purpose fields did not come through strongly in the online survey. That's something that we saw in the park tour and was noted by city staff. But in terms of people who wrote in what they would like to see, a lot of that was focused on baseball or softball fields and not rectangular sports fields.
Yeah, that surprises me.
Okay, Commissioner Kreis.
I'd heard a lot from the community, and I've just seen there's a good amount of comments in here about like an indoor pool or more public pools or more aquatic stuff in general. You just didn't mention that like a lot. I know it was part of the like more facilities part, but could you talk on that as well?
Yes. So that was a common open-ended response to at least, I think, 3 of the survey questions were people noting the need for an indoor pool or just more outdoor pools, more aquatic facilities in general. But that was not necessarily a top response for the multi-choice questions for the survey. So it came through an open-ended, but didn't necessarily rise fully to the top for improvements or facilities. But there was definitely a strong portion of respondents who were strongly calling for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you guys. We'll just kind of wrap this up and then we'll transition to our workshop portion. So the last thing on our agenda is generally commissioner comments for tonight. I would just say we could conclude our business side of the meeting, and then unless there is something pressing that you would like the public to know, I'll entertain any comments. But seeing none, we'll adjourn the business meeting at 7:14 and transition to the workshop. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah. You know what? I like Richland. Dog Doogity, no doubt. Play on, Richland. Play on, Richland. Yo, your dog just dropped a deuce. Doggy, get down, good dog. Baby, gotta walk her through Howard A. And all around our town, cover much ground. She gonna walk it from Leslie. In the sun, it's a good day. Each and every day, it's the our way. A girl and a dog, they were fine. Wow. Until they left the dookie, that's a crime. From the north side to the south side, it's a good day to take a trail ride. Keep your doggy on a leash with care. You know the trails are there to share. We gotta keep it fair. I noticed that day Doggy wasn't holding nothing back. Doggy, when you do yo do, I pick it up for you. Can I get down so I can? I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, you got to bag it up. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, we got to bag it up. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, we got to bag it up. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, you got to bag it up. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey yo, let's keep it clean. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. You know we love our city. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. We got to keep it clean. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. 'Cause we love our city. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, you got to bag it up now. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, we got to bag it up. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, we got to bag it up. I like the way you walk it. Dog doogity, you got to bag it up.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Tom French. I'm the director of the Fairgrounds and Event Center for Benton County. I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us today, including our county commissioners, elected officials, city council members, and community partners. We're excited to have you here celebrating with us today. And a special thank you and recognition to the construction team, Fowler Construction, and Meyer Architect and Engineering. This project is dedicated to preserving and remodeling a cherished landmark in our community that holds a deep value. This project isn't about abandoning tradition, but rather it's about strengthening it for the future. The growth of this arena we are standing by today has allowed the county to host numerous events throughout the year. This major remodel will be able to revitalize the facility for generations to come and drive more economic impact in our community. With us here today, I'd like to recognize Dan McDaniel. In 2019, Benton County held a dedication and naming ceremony for the McDaniel Arena. Dan served the Benton Franklin Fair Association Board of Directors for 24 years, and as its president for 3 of those years. He was committed to making the Benton Franklin Fair Rodeo the best in the Northwest, and his countless hours of volunteer service and immeasurable donations helped make that goal a reality. Dan's vision resulted in improvements such as the bridge over the racetrack, lights, stanchions, announcer stand, hospitality areas, the over-the-chute seating, and among many others that are too numerous to name. We are honored to have you here today. Thank you for joining us, Dan. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Brooks Payne, President, Fowler Construction.
Thanks, Tom. On behalf of Fowler Construction, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for the opportunity to design and build this new arena. I'd like to start off by giving thanks to the people who have made this project a reality. First, I would like to thank the Benton County Commissioners for the planning and vision of this project. I would like to thank the Benton County project team of Matt Rasmussen, Jared McPherson, Robert Blaine, Riley Olero, Danica Hope, and Tom French. I'd like to thank the Winnahaw Group for supporting the project as an owner's rep, Jake Hartwig and Heath Gardner. I'd like to thank our design partner, Meyer Architect and Engineering, providing design services for the project. I would like to thank the City of Kennewick for supporting this project in permitting and planning. With that, at Fowler, we have the unique responsibility every day of making someone's dream a reality. We take this to heart, and it's really the reason why we love our jobs. So we're gonna do everything we can to make this dream a reality for the community. With making that reality, we need to support our project teams, support each other, and support the hardworking men and women that are gonna be out here every day making this thing happen. We can't express our thankfulness enough, and we hope we can enjoy this with all you in about 10 months at next year's fair. So thank you. Next, I will introduce the mayor if she's here, but next someone will read the proclamation for the City of Kennewick.
Good afternoon, and I'm not the mayor of Kennewick. I'm going to be stepping in for Mayor Crawford today to read the proclamation. My name is Katie, and I'm the communications coordinator for Benton County. Whereas for 75 years, the Benton County Fairgrounds and McDaniel Arena have served as a cornerstone of the Kennewick community, drawing visitors both near and far and acting as a catalyst for economic growth and cultural engagement. And whereas the Benton County Fairgrounds have been a place of gathering, celebration, and connection, fostering a sense of community and pride among the residents of Kennewick and beyond. Whereas the current infrastructure, while cherished, has aged and now stands in need of critical modernization to ensure continued safety, accessibility, and the ability to host larger scale events and to serve the community that we love. Whereas the planned comprehensive renovation of the McDaniel Arena and surrounding facilities will revitalize the fairgrounds, preserving its legacy while meeting the demands of a modern and growing populace. Whereas this groundbreaking ceremony marks not just the beginning of construction, but the continued commitment to progress, community enrichment, economic vitality for Kennewick and for Benton County. Now, therefore, I, Gretel Crawford, Mayor of City of Kennewick, do hereby proclaim enthusiasm for the groundbreaking of the new facility at the Benton County Fairgrounds. We celebrate this momentous occasion as a testament to our shared vision and thriving future and a lasting legacy for generations to come. In witness whereof, I have hereby sent my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Kennewick. Thank you. And I would like to introduce our Commissioner Pro Tem, Michael Alvarez.
That's fine. So before I get started, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that typically I like to go ahead and just speak and look into the cameras, look to the people. But I got to be honest with you, after our county commissioner meeting in Prosser, went back, rewrote the speech, and did some additions to it. And then I went to go print it just a few minutes ago, and then I looked and I opened my door and staff was completely gone. I'm like, where is everybody at? And I go, oh yeah. So I'm just running a little bit late here. I want to say that, the words I'm going to read today, I want to read everything because I think words matter. And so bear with me on this. I'll go ahead and get that done. But first, I want to go ahead and thank you all for coming. This is a very important event. I know we have Fair Board members here. We have community leaders here, business leaders. We have Mr. McDaniels here. And I definitely want to meet him because I've met him. I've heard a lot about him. So on behalf of myself and my fellow commissioners, once again, thank you for coming. It's exciting to celebrate the groundbreaking today for the grandstands here at McDaniel Arena. The county has invested valuable time into determining the best use of this 170 acres here that we enjoy. To do this, we needed to do two things: maintain fiscal sustainability and increase economic benefits for the taxpayers of Benton County by growing the event center and fairgrounds. The arena you are standing on is a very big portion of that. The project is funded by economic development dollars designed for projects that will stimulate economic growth, bringing together communities, but also boosting tourism. With major upgrades to projects such as the McDaniel Arena, it can lead to a surge in demand for accommodation, dining, transportation, retail services, and even job creation. In addition, by creating more visitors and events, the fairgrounds could generate additional tax revenue, which could be reinvested back in items such as our public safety and other community services here in Benton County. Next, I want to talk about something that holds a special place in our heart and the community's heart, the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo. For over 70 years, this has brought families and friends and visitors together to celebrate a shared heritage, values, love for our community. It's more than just a rodeo, fair and rodeo. It's a tradition that connects generations and one that Benton County and the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo Board wishes to continue. I recently read this year that ticket buyers came from 41 states. Let that sink in, 41 states. That's a reminder that we have something special here, not to just us, but people across the country. Once again, this is another reason I'm excited to replace the grandstands. The new grandstands will double the current seating capacity, allowing even more folks to take part in the fun and excitement here at McDaniels Arena. They'll provide more shade for those hot summer days, improved service options, much needed new restrooms, and better ADA access, because every guest here deserves to be welcome and have a place here at this arena and rodeo. This investment isn't just about grandstand, it's more about honoring our past while preparing for the future. It's about making sure that our children and our grandchildren continue to enjoy this tradition for decades to come, as well as all the future fun events that we have planned for this area. We look forward to seeing this complete remodel come next year, next summer, and sharing the progress along the way. We also need to keep working together with our community partners, stakeholders, to make the arena even a better place in the future. Thank you for joining us today. Now I'd like to go ahead and have Katie back up, and she's going to go ahead and let us do the groundbreaking. And once again, I see a bunch of fair and rodeo board members here. Once again, I want this to be a great event. You guys have done a lot of hard work. Lori, I know Big D here is here, Dwayne. We had a good conversation yesterday. I'm not going to let him ever forget that. But once again, thank you all for coming. And Katie, are you ready to come? Let's do it.
My name is Jamie McPherson, and I'm one of the ground operations coordinators for the Commemorative Air Force Air Base Arizona. We're here in Walla Walla, Washington today, and we're going to go look at a B-17 Flying Fortress and a B-25 Mitchell bomber today and get a tour inside. This here has now been converted to a donation box, but this was once a 100-pound bomb, as you would see found inside of these bombers. It's not that big objectively, it's about 4 feet tall, but it does weigh quite a bit. And when we usually talk about bombs, actually the poundage we're referring to is actually the explosive force measured as TNT, not the actual weight of the bomb. So for instance, a 100-pound bomb would actually probably weigh closer to 200 pounds with the casing of metal. So behind me here, we have a B-25 Mitchell bomber. This one here is known as Made in the Shade. This is one of the only combat veteran B-25s left in the world that flies. There's about 40 aircraft that are airworthy right now that are B-25s, of which only 2 saw combat to my knowledge, and this is the only one that saw combat in Europe. This one specifically was actually used mostly to bomb strategic targets like railroad bridges, aqueducts, that kind of stuff in Yugoslavia and the Mediterranean. It has 15 combat missions under its belt. This one specifically is a J model, which is known as a gunship. It's kind of a predecessor to today's A-10 Warthog. There's 12 50 caliber machine guns in total that were basically designed to gun down enemy targets, then release some bombs and go home. So as you can see here, the name of this airplane is Made in the Shade, and there's a really fun story behind the name of this specific B-25. When we were first formed as a unit, we were donated a B-17 that we restored. We built it out in the open Arizona sun, and once we were done building it, we actually built a hangar to store it in, and we were then donated this aircraft as a restoration project. And so this was the first aircraft that what was then the Arizona wing before it became Air Base Arizona restored inside of the hangar, and thus it was quite literally made in the shade. All right, so this right here is known as a WASP engine behind me. It's a 14-cylinder radial engine. So if you look close, you'll probably only count 7. That's because it's a twin bank. So you have 7 on one side and 7 cylinders behind it. Now, the interesting thing about radial engines like this one is that, of course, since it's a full circle, 360 degrees of power, the oil pulls down by gravity in the lower cylinders right here. So if you look down here, we've actually installed little catch cans to catch some of that oil. We always like to joke radial engines don't leak, they just mark their territory. In this case, this engine actually creates about 1,700 horsepower. There's 2 of them, one on each side, for a total of 3,400 horsepower. This is a fairly powerful engine configuration for its time. And so because of that, this is one of the few bombers that can take off in a very short distance that we operated during World War II. This one specifically can actually take off in about 600 feet when properly configured. And that's part of why you'll see these used, for instance, in the very famous Doolittle raid, where they took off from aircraft carriers to bomb Japan. Here are 2 of the cheat guns. Like I said, there's 12 50 caliber machine guns on board this aircraft. So these ones specifically would be operated by the pilot. You have another one here in the nose that is operated by the pilot, and then this one would be operated by the bombardier, who would sit in the nose. Then you've got 2 more here on the side, and then on each waist you have 1. You have 2 up top in the turret, and then you have 2 in the tail for the tail gunner. These machine guns can fire at about 10 rounds per second, so 600 rounds a minute each. So if you think about it, that's 120 bullets a second, so that's a lot of firepower coming out of this aircraft. So if you look right here, this is the bomb sight for the bombardier. This is essentially the aiming device used to drop the bombs. And if you look here at the nose, this part here is very flat. The reason we keep this part so flat is actually so there's no distortion for the bomb sight. That is a Norden bomb sight. So that's a fun, interesting story. The Norden bomb sight was the 3rd most expensive item developed and produced by the US during World War II. The most expensive things being number 1, the B-29 bomber built by Boeing, and number 2, the Manhattan Project, also known as the atomic bomb. So this was the 3rd most expensive thing we developed during the war, and it was kept very secret. And generally bomber crews were required to remove these after mission and put a cloak over them and deliver them to an armed guard who would actually guard those 24/7 when they weren't in use. So if you look inside of here, in our bomb bay, we actually collect signatures from different World War II veterans who served on board different B-25s. Notably here, we have a veteran of the Doolittle Tokyo raid from 1942. Another one here, Ed Saylor, he's a Tokyo Raider as well. And here's a third one. So there's a number of them. Then over here you have a gentleman, Ken Calkins. He was actually one of the maintenance crew on a B-25 out of California during the war. And last but certainly not least, another highlight I like to show is Betty Hayes here. She actually worked in the Kansas City plant of North American Aviation building these aircraft. So she is one of the Rosie the Riveters. About 80% of this aircraft was manufactured and assembled by women. So if you look above you here, there's actually some bombs. I believe here you have a 500 pounder and these are 250 pounders, like we were talking about earlier. The poundage is really referring to the explosive power of the bomb, not the actual gross weight of the bomb. And here are the shackles that essentially the bombs would hook into. So typically when they drop, they're released in a staggered formation. So you'd have one drop, then one from the other side and so on, but in a very quick succession. What I always like to point out to people too is these bombs are pretty much gravity operated only. They're not like modern day cruise missiles or anything that can steer to a target. So the best way I like to kind of explain this is imagine you're driving at 30 miles an hour down the road with a can of Coke and you want to throw it in a trash can, right? You're really trying to math out how to get it into that hole perfectly. So bombing back then was a lot more of a mathematical science and it was a lot less accurate than it is today. And that's why the Norden bomb sight was such a critical piece. It could do about 60 different computations, not just solutions, but 60 computations, including different things like airspeed, wind direction, to help calculate where the bomb would fall. So it was a very important piece of the equipment that kind of goes hand in hand with this. The other thing you'll notice in this bomb bay specifically that you'll see differently in most other bombers of the time, especially like our B-17, is there's no direct pass-through in here because the bomb bay absorbs most of the fuselage center. There is actually a small crawl space right above us that I'll show you guys later, but essentially there's no way to walk through the bomb bay. So if you look right down here below you, you've seen this ladder. Now the ladder we have there is for ease of spectators to come in and out. There is a ladder there that is designed. It's just a 90-degree vertical. It's a little harder to get up. And that's the only way in and out of here by design. There are some emergency exits, like this one here behind me. Right here, it's essentially a sunroof that you can go through. And then in the nose, the bombardier had his own emergency exit as well. The seats behind you that the cameraman is sitting in, those are retrofitted. Originally, there would be a jump seat and a platform there for the turret gunner who would operate this turret gun above you. And then here would have been a variety of different gauges, switches, and fuse panels. These here have been slightly modified and modernized, of course. But the flight engineer was basically the third member of the crew that would help operate the aircraft along with the pilot and co-pilot. Of course, we've modernized things a bit. So here's one of the jump seats that would have been there originally, along with the platform that would have been where the cameraman is now sitting. So originally it's an electric turret, so he would actually poke through here and there would be electric controls for him to turn it. It turns and swivels 360 degrees. It can aim pretty much horizontal and up and around, so it mostly protects from oncoming attackers from above. Flight engineer had a lot of different roles, but nowadays, of course, you have a lot more automation in an aircraft, so a lot of things like fuel management, emergency management, fire risk, anything like that fell onto the engineer, right? If a control cable, because most of them are actually exposed in here, if those were damaged in flight, he would essentially repair those so we can control the aircraft. So that was a lot of his key things, was basically in-flight repairs and ensuring that the systems are operating properly, because nowadays, of course, we've got that all automated, but back then a lot of that was still done by hand, which is why you essentially have 3 essential crew to operate this aircraft as opposed to 2, as you would nowadays in, say, an airline or something like that. Okay, so in here, we're in the cockpit of the B-25, and as you can probably tell, if you know anything about aviation, we have modernized this a little bit, right? You've got your comms and your transponder and all the good stuff that's required nowadays of an aircraft. But a lot of it really is the same basic principles that you'd start out with if you learn even nowadays in a basic Cessna airplane or something, right? You've got your 6-pack here. You've got your control quadrant here with throttle, props, and mixture. Trim wheel here, of course, right? Landing gear down below. And what's nice too is you've got these windows here. They open quite wide. It's just a fun little lever right here. You just slide it forwards and backwards. But yeah, other than that, like I say, you've got, of course, your yoke here. And then you've got your rudder pedals and brakes down below. And that's pretty much it. It's very much based on a lot of the same principles that you still learn today. So if you look right there, that's essentially a crawl space above the bomb bay that goes to the back. So that was the only way in flight for the crew to maneuver back and forth between the front and the rear of the aircraft, would have been that very tight crawl space. Now granted, most of these individuals who flew on board this aircraft at the time were somewhere between ages 18 and 22, and back then people were a little smaller and a lot skinnier than they are today, right? Our diet was very different. But so all these young men were crawling back and forth through there. That was their only way. So that's our crawl space again, just from the other side. So we're now in the rear of the aircraft behind the bomb bay. And these seats down here, they've been added for the safety and enjoyment of our passengers. But these two 50 caliber machine guns here are every bit as real and original as the aircraft itself. So if you look up here on each side, there's storage boxes. Those would hold ammunition for the 50 caliber machine gun. And then the machine gunners would stand back here, grab it, and then they have a trigger here that's been manufactured to basically alleviate the trigger in the back so they can use trigger fingers like they were trained to do. And then of course you can almost stand up here. This is probably the most comfortable part of the aircraft. Look in the back, of course, you have the tail gunner position. So it's a little tunnel you crawl through, and then basically a bicycle seat you sit on top with two 50 caliber machine guns in front of you. And that completes our presentation on the B-25. So behind me here we have a B-17 Flying Fortress. This one is known as Sentimental Journey, and it's been in our possession since 1972. So to tell you a little bit about the B-17, originally it was developed actually as a submarine hunter for lower altitudes, but was quickly found to be a very capable platform for high altitude bombing with a few modifications. So this here is a G model, which is the last model made. About half of the roughly 12,800 B-17s that were made are actually the G model. So the G model is very distinctive because it has this little chin turret below it with two 50 caliber machine guns that are remote controlled. Now this one here is Sentimental Journey. And her journey actually began in the fall of 1944 when she rolled off the assembly line at Douglas in Long Beach, California. Douglas was one of three companies along with Boeing and Lockheed that made the B-17 during the war. Boeing actually designed it and produced the most, but since there was such a demand for them and Boeing couldn't fill the whole demand, they were also built by Lockheed and Douglas. So this one was built in Long Beach, California, and was sent to the Pacific. Now this one didn't actually serve in any bombing missions, but it did serve in wartime in the Pacific as a photo reconnaissance aircraft. So part of what it did is the entire bomb bay was actually gutted and had specialized photo mapping equipment put in there. That's what it did during the war and right after the war. Later on, it's my understanding it was used actually as what we call a mothership for early drones. So they had surplus B-17 bombers that were remote controlled, and the mothership would basically have the drone operators in it. And then after that, it was relegated to firefighting duty. So the bomb bay was again repurposed to hold fire retardant or water, and was then used to go on water bombing missions. And following that, it was donated to us in 1972, and it was the first restoration project that what then was the Arizona wing had, which is now Air Base Arizona. And that kind of brings us up to today. So if you look right here at the nose, you've of course got the bombs up top. Those are essentially, in World War II, those would have been bombing missions that the aircraft has flown. Early in the war, 25 missions was the requirement for a crew to go home. And later that was bumped up to 35 and even later to 50 because as we had more air superiority, the missions, though they were still very grueling and hard, were perceived to be a little quote-unquote easier, and there was a bit of manpower concern towards the end of the war, so the mission tally went up. Now in this case, those bombs, however, do not signify the amount of missions it flew, but rather the amount of tour stops it made on its first tour rotation after being restored. And if you look below it, you'll see something you didn't see during the war, which is actually 3 movie cameras. Now in this case, there's 3 movies this airplane has starred in. 1941, All the Brave Young Men, and most recently Masters of the Air. And there are currently about 40 B-17s left in the world, of which about 10 hold an airworthiness certificate. And as of this year, right now, only 3 are airworthy and actively flying. 2 here in the US and 1 in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of them that are currently undergoing either heavy maintenance or restoration. And this is the only one this year that you can actually see on tour and buy rides on. So it's pretty much a one-of-a-kind experience right now. So right behind me here, we have one of the 4 engines on this aircraft. So this is a 4-engine bomber. In this case, we have a Wright 1820 behind me, which is a 9-cylinder radial engine. So again, the gravity, of course, pulls the oil down to the lower cylinders, which causes the leaks, like you can see here. We always like to joke it's not leaking, it's just marking its territory. In this case, it has 9 cylinders, creates 1,200 horsepower per engine, and these engines are actually what we call turbo supercharged. Now, the reason for that is not so much necessarily to get more power out of them, but rather to create more pressure in the engine. So at a high altitude, you're basically simulating a lower altitude. That way, essentially, the engine performs better at higher altitude. So this is a big tire, of course. 2 of them, one on each side. This is a tail dragger, as we like to call it. So the rear landing gear is right there. It's a little bit smaller. All 3 of them do retract into the aircraft in flight. So in here, we are inside the bomb bay, of course, of the B-17. And again, we have a variety of signatures we've collected over the year from different crew members and people who helped build them. One that's most notable here is a gentleman called Lucky Luckadoo. He actually just passed away 2 days ago. And he's very well known. He wrote a book called Damn Lucky. Excellent book. I strongly recommend it. It should be an enjoyable read for anyone interested. Here we have another gentleman, for instance. He completed his 35 missions as a ball turret gunner. And we'll show you the ball turret here in a minute. It's always something people find very fascinating. And then, of course, above you, you've got bombs. These are a little bigger. These are 500-pounders. The B-17 was capable of hauling quite a few of those, of course, by comparison. A little bigger payload. And then one of the more noteworthy things here, of course, is you can walk between the front and the back. This right here is what we refer to as the catwalk. It's about a 6-inch wide walkway from the cockpit to the radio room. So here we have the ball turret. Now if you look, I'm about 6 feet tall. I'm crouched down. I can barely fit in this, right? This is a very tight, confined space. Typically it was reserved for shorter crew members, but that didn't mean that tall people were immune to being drafted into this position. Contrary to popular belief, this is actually one of the safest positions in the aircraft because the Germans would typically attack from above. So being below the aircraft gave you a little bit of protection and some cover. Now the way it works is this actually reclines down into the fuselage, and they would climb in from inside the airplane into the ball turret and then would turn it on, and it's electric, so it was operated that way. And they could swivel it 360 degrees, aim down and around, and protect the aircraft as best possible. Once you're locked in here, it's a very isolated position. The size of this tail, proportionate to the aircraft, is very big. Part of that design is essentially redundancy, so this tail can take a lot of damage and retain a good amount of rudder authority in flight. Which further kind of complements the nickname Flying Fortress. This airplane can take one hell of a beating and still stay airborne. You know, it's definitely well made, but the fuselage itself is made of very thin aluminum, about as thick as 2 Coca-Cola cans pushed together. So essentially if it gets hit, right, the bullet goes in one end through the aircraft and out the other. There's absolutely nothing there. So this is actually Manny Quinn. He's our tail gunner here in the B-17, so he's got 2 50 caliber machine guns out the back, of course, to protect us from anyone sneaking up from behind. Definitely a tighter position, definitely the most isolated because he's further back and more physically removed from anyone than any other position in the aircraft. So just be careful, it is tight. What we'll do is we'll start in the nose and kind of work our way backwards. All right, so behind me we have what I like to call the best seat in aviation. It's an absolutely incredible view, but this is the bombardier's seat. So he's one of the 4 officers on board of the 10-man crew on this B-17. His job essentially is to calculate where to drop the bombs. They were talking about earlier with the Norden bomb site. There's one of those right behind me. And then over here we have the navigator's table. So the navigator was in charge of strictly navigating this aircraft to the target. And then if you look over here, we've got, of course, 2 50 caliber machine guns, one for each of the crew members in here to use. This is another signature piece of the G model to have 2 50 caliber machine guns in there. Originally there were none, later there was one, and on the G model there is 2. The other thing you can see here is this is one of the microphone inputs for the aircraft. So actually everyone in here, like I said, it was an unpressurized system in this aircraft, so you're exposed to the elements. So everyone had a throat activated mic. They could talk to each other that way because it's very loud, of course, in an airplane like this. And then down here, this is what's known as a rheostat. So when I was talking earlier about the bunny suit they would wear under all the leather clothes, they could plug into here and essentially turn up almost like a dimmer switch on your light. They could set how much heat they wanted. Now most veterans I've talked to will tell you there's really only two settings, too hot or too cold. But in theory, this was variably adjustable to keep them relatively comfortable as best possible. And then if you look up here behind, or above me, behind you in a minute, I'll show you what's known as the celestial dome. So this is primarily, actually no joke, for stargazing, so that you can actually look around and see where the stars are to help navigate, right? So it's known as the celestial dome for that reason. All right, so if you look up here, coming up the small ladder into the cockpit, this is the pilot seat and this is the co-pilot seat. Configuration here is a little roomier, but still pretty tight compared to a B-25. Now the visibility is pretty nice too, but a little smaller, and there you can see your celestial dome that we were just looking at. Up here we've put all the modern avionics separate to all the original stuff. Of course the instruments have been redone, but it's not too different from its original configuration. One of the big differences you'll see here is instead of having the conventional lever setup of throttle, prop, and mixture, you have your mixtures here, all four of them. You actually have all four throttles here. So this bottom one is a throttle and this top one is a throttle. So this is essentially the two on the left, throttles 1 and 2, and then throttles 3 and 4 right here. So if you watch a war movie, you'll often see they'll take the underhand and move them like this. That is actually so they can control all four, but you can also control the tops or the bottoms separately as needed. And then here you have all four of the propeller pitches right there to adjust. You've got actually one of your trim wheels right here for the rudder trim, and then your elevator trim right there. And then here, of course, you've got a control yoke, much like most other bombers of the era. And that one, of course, says Boeing, right? The pride of Washington right there. And then if you look up here, of course, you've got a great visibility. You essentially have a sunroof to help spot other people in the formation, right? These would fly in a relatively tight formation, so being able to have good situational awareness of what was above you was pretty important. And of course, secondary benefit, it helps light up the cockpit, and tertiary benefit, you can spot enemy fighters that way if they're coming your way. Since, like I was saying earlier, especially in Europe, the Germans would typically attack from above and dive at you. And then we'll look behind us here in a moment at the engineer station. So this is where the flight engineer would hang out. So he has a jump seat here to sit on, but typically he would be standing in here. If you look behind you, there's a fuse panel and some other things that are essential for operation of this aircraft. Like we talked about in the B-25, you absolutely needed a third person in the cockpit to manage the systems, but he would also be the turret gunner, not unlike in the B-25. All right, so if you look out behind me here at the engines, right, there's two on either side, and if you look at the inboard side, you'll see those are painted while the rest of the aircraft is still pretty much bare metal for the most part. And the reason for that is actually to prevent glare from blinding the pilots or inhibiting their vision while operating the aircraft. All right, now if you look here, I'm in a pretty tight spot, quite literally and also figuratively. So this is what we know as the catwalk. It's about 6 inches wide, and it takes us from the front of the aircraft to the rear, where we have the radio room, the waist gunners, the ball turret, and the tail gunner. And this is the bomb bay. So on either side would have bombs, typically a full assortment of them. And it was actually the bombardier's job in flight to come in here and arm the bombs. So he would have to remove safety pins, and he was required to keep those on his person as proof the bombs had been armed and primed for being dropped. Yep, so these are primarily seats we've added for passengers. So here you've got 3 extra seats for passengers. This would have been the only original seat in here, and it wouldn't have had a seat back, and this is where the radio operator would have sat. And this is where all the radio equipment would have been. And then on this side primarily would have been a life raft and some area for the crew to basically sit down, that kind of sit down together like in a bobsled almost in each other's laps, for the waist gunners and the tail gunner during takeoff and landing, so it's somewhere secure to sit. And then this 50 caliber machine gun here can actually be moved down these rails and used to be fired upwards to protect the aircraft from oncoming attackers from above. Moving on, right there below us is the ball turret. So this is how you would have originally accessed it, from inside the aircraft through that hatch there. and that's how you get in and out of it. Now, another fun thing I like to show people in here, so if you look right here, behind this box, there's a little funnel. That funnel is known as a relief tube. I'll let you guess what that means, but it is exactly what you're thinking. And standing up right here, of course, we have 250 caliber machine guns again. And here we have more control cables for the aircraft. And so you'd have two waist gunners in here. Now, if you notice, the two guns are actually staggered. On earlier versions of the B-17, they were side by side, and there was no plexiglass. There was just originally a window. Problem is the window would freeze up and you couldn't see out of it, so they've removed the windows and this would just be open. So there'd be a slipstream of wind coming through here. So think about you're going over 200 miles an hour at below 70 and you're standing by this window. Absolutely crazy environmental effect, right? But again, you've got these 250 cals here and they're staggered in parts, so as these two crew members swing around shooting guns, they're not bumping into each other, they're traversing past each other. The other thing I always love to show people about these 50 calibers in the B-17, if you look right here, this is actually a holographic sight, not unlike a red dot sight used by the military or law enforcement nowadays. A lot of people don't realize those already existed during World War II. And again, here is a specialized trigger, so they can grab it and just use their trigger finger. And then here you've got, of course, a big box full of 50 caliber machine gun rounds. It would not be uncommon for them to bring extra on board if possible, but typically by the time you'd get back from a conventional mission, there would be nothing left. In Hollywood, of course, you see these guys just laying down on it. In reality, typically about a 1 to 2 second burst each time they'd spot an aircraft. So 10 to 20 rounds max, partially reserve ammo and partially because of how fast things were actually happening here in the air. This is the only place in the aircraft where a large person can stand up, is right here. For reference, I'm about 6'1" and I can stand freely here, but this is the only place in the entire aircraft where that's possible. Anywhere else, you're generally going to have to duck down, and of course towards the tail, things taper down again. So as we move through, we start getting smaller again. Yep. And then our tail gunner would crawl through here past the tail gear, past the landing gear, and towards the back. And they're actually the only crew member with a dedicated escape hatch to the left there. I don't know if you can see it from there. That was the only way for them to escape. And we don't let people back there because of the tail gear, of course. So we're with Air Base Arizona, which is part of the Commemorative Air Force. The Commemorative Air Force is comprised of over 60 wings across North America and Europe and Mexico. There's one wing in Europe and one in Mexico. But we operate over 160 flying World War II aircraft, so the world's biggest World War II aircraft operator. Each different wing has different things. Some are more like a flying club, others like ours are a little bigger. We have our own museum down in Mesa, Arizona with over 30 aircraft on static display as well as 7 that you can fly on. And those are generally year-round possibilities, but during the summer, to beat the heat and kind of get out and let the whole country enjoy these aircraft, we take some of the bigger aircraft like our B-17 and our B-25 on tour across the US. Nowadays, we tend to kind of alternate between an East Coast tour and a West Coast tour every other year. And we make different stops, typically from May through September. So for about 4 months, we're somewhere else every week. So you'll see about 16 to 20 stops a year typically for us. And we're an all-volunteer organization. So most of us, like myself, will come out for about 2 weeks at a time and basically make this possible and help any way we can, right? Whether that's selling rides, whether we're flight crew. The pilots, of course, dedicate their time as well. Most of those are either airline pilots or career military pilots who fly these aircraft for us. And so everything we do is self-funded, right? We, of course, once in a while get a generous benefactor, but for the most part, the way we operate is all of our revenue from rides, from tours, from souvenirs that we sell in our portable gift shop trailers, and of course the revenue that the museum creates is how we fund all of this. And again, we're a nonprofit, so all of this just goes right back into the organization and into trying to maintain these aircraft and keep them airworthy as long as possible for others to enjoy. The way I always like to put it is we're basically holding the door to the past open as long as possible for people to go through it. And so being able to come out on tour and help make that a possibility is an honor and a privilege for all of us. There's nothing more redeeming that I've ever done in my time.
Find your next adventure. 3 rivers, 300 days of sun. Discover Washington's Tri-Cities. Explore. Recharge. Try us out. Plan your trip at visittricities.com.
When you pour grease down the drain, it's kind of like dumping a bag of concrete into your sink. Cooking oils, coffee grounds, eggshells, along with a whole list of everyday items all work together to damage your home's plumbing, clog the sewers, and destroy the environment. Don't be a clog in the system. Pour used grease and oil into a container and scrape plates and pans into the trash. More information and helpful tips are available on the City of Richland's webpage.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Tom French. I'm the director of the Fairgrounds and Event Center for Benton County. I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us today, including our county commissioners, elected officials, city council members, and community partners. We're excited to have you here celebrating with us today. And a special thank you and recognition to the construction team, Fowler Construction, and Meyer Architect and Engineering. This project is dedicated to preserving and remodeling a cherished landmark in our community that holds a deep value. This project isn't about abandoning tradition, but rather it's about strengthening it for the future. The growth of this arena we are standing by today has allowed the county to host numerous events throughout the year. This major remodel will be able to revitalize the facility for generations to come and drive more economic impact into our community. With us here today, I'd like to recognize Dan McDaniel. In 2019, Benton County held a dedication and naming ceremony for the McDaniel Arena. Dan served the Benton Franklin Fair Association Board of Directors for 24 years, and as its president for 3 of those years. He was committed to making the Benton Franklin Fair Rodeo the best in the Northwest, and his countless hours of volunteer service and immeasurable donations helped make that goal a reality. Dan's vision resulted in improvements such as the bridge over the racetrack, lights, stanchions, announcer stand, hospitality areas, the over-the-chute seating, and among many others that are too numerous to name. We are honored to have you here today. Thank you for joining us, Dan. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Brooks Payne, President, Fowler Construction.
Thanks, Tom. On behalf of Fowler Construction, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for the opportunity to design and build this new arena. I'd like to start off by giving thanks to the people who have made this project a reality. First, I would like to thank the Benton County Commissioners for the planning and vision of this project. I would like to thank the Benton County project team of Matt Rasmussen, Jared McPherson, Robert Blaine, Riley Olero, Danica Hope, and Tom French. I'd like to thank the Winnahaw Group for supporting the project as an owner's rep, Jake Hartwig and Heath Gardner. I'd like to thank our design partner, Meyer Architect and Engineering, providing design services for the project. I would like to thank the City of Kennewick for supporting this project in permitting and planning. With that, at Fowler, we have the unique responsibility every day of making someone's dream a reality. We take this to heart, and it's really the reason why we love our jobs. So we're gonna do everything we can to make this dream a reality for the community. With making that reality, we need to support our project teams, support each other, and support the hardworking men and women that are gonna be out here every day making this thing happen. We can't express our thankfulness enough, and we hope we can enjoy this with all of you in about 10 months at next year's fair. So thank you. Next, I will introduce the mayor if she's here, but next someone will read the proclamation for the city of Kennewick.
Good afternoon, and I'm not the mayor of Kennewick. I'm going to be stepping in for Mayor Crawford today to read the proclamation. My name is Katie, and I'm the communications coordinator for Benton County. Whereas for 75 years, the Benton County Fairgrounds and McDaniel Arena have served as a cornerstone of the Kennewick community, drawing visitors both near and far and acting as a catalyst for economic growth and cultural engagement. And whereas the Benton County Fairgrounds have been a place of gathering, celebration, and connection, fostering a sense of community and pride among the residents of Kennewick and beyond. Whereas the current infrastructure, while cherished, has aged and now stands in need of critical modernization to ensure continued safety, accessibility, and the ability to host larger scale events and to serve the community that we love. Whereas the planned comprehensive renovation of the McDaniel Arena and surrounding facilities will revitalize the fairgrounds, preserving its legacy while meeting the demands of a modern and growing populace. Whereas this groundbreaking ceremony marks not just the beginning of construction, but the continued commitment to progress, community enrichment, economic vitality for Kennewick and for Benton County. Now, therefore, I, Gretel Crawford, Mayor of City of Kennewick, do hereby proclaim enthusiasm for the groundbreaking of the new facility at the Benton County Fairgrounds. We celebrate this momentous occasion as a testament to our shared vision and thriving future and a lasting legacy for generations to come. In witness whereof, I have hereby sent my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Kennewick. Thank you. And I would like to introduce our Commissioner Pro Tem, Michael Alvarez.
That's fine. So before I get started, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that typically I like to go ahead and just speak and look into the cameras, look to the people. But I got to be honest with you, after our county commissioner meeting in Prosser, went back, rewrote the speech, and did some additions to it. And then I went to go print it just a few minutes ago, and then I looked and I opened my door and staff was completely gone. I'm like, where is everybody at? And I go, oh yeah. So I'm just running a little bit late here. I want to say that, the words I'm going to read today, I want to read everything because I think words matter. And so bear with me on this. I'll go ahead and get that done. But first, I want to go ahead and thank you all for coming. This is a very important event. I know we have Fair Board members here. We have community leaders here, business leaders. We have Mr. McDaniels here. And I definitely want to meet him because I have not met him. I've heard a lot about him. So on behalf of myself and my fellow commissioners, once again, thank you for coming. It's exciting to celebrate the groundbreaking today for the grandstands here at McDaniel Arena. The county has invested valuable time into determining the best use of this 170 acres here that we enjoy. To do this, we needed to do two things: maintain fiscal sustainability and increase economic benefits for the taxpayers of Benton County by growing the event center and fairgrounds. The arena you're standing on is a very big portion of that. The project is funded by economic development dollars designed for projects that will stimulate economic growth, bringing together communities, but also boosting tourism. With major upgrades to projects such as the McDaniel Arena, it can lead to a surge in demand for accommodation, dining, transportation, retail services, and even job creation. In addition, by creating more visitors and events, the fairgrounds could generate additional tax revenue, which could be reinvested back in items such as our public safety and other community services here in Benton County. Next, I want to talk about something that holds a special place in our heart, in the community's heart, the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo. For over 70 years, this has brought families and friends and visitors together to celebrate a shared heritage, values, love for our community, It's more than just a rodeo, fair and rodeo. It's a tradition that connects generations and one that Benton County and the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo Board wishes to continue. I recently read this year that ticket buyers came from 41 states. Let that sink in, 41 states. That's a reminder that we have something special here, not to just us, but people across the country. Once again, this is another reason I'm excited to replace the grandstands. The new grandstands will double the current seating capacity, allowing even more folks to take part in the fun and excitement here at McDaniels Arena. They'll provide more shade for those hot summer days, improved service options, much needed new restrooms, and better ADA access, because every guest here deserves to be welcome and have a place here at this arena and rodeo. This investment isn't just about grandstand, it's more about honoring our past while preparing for the future. It's about making sure that our children and our grandchildren continue to enjoy this tradition for decades to come, as well as all the future fun events that we have planned for this area. We look forward to seeing this complete remodel come next year, next summer, and sharing the progress along the way. We also need to keep working together with our community partners, stakeholders, to make the arena even a better place in the future. Thank you for joining us today. Now I'd like to go ahead and have Katie back up, and she's going to go ahead and let us do the groundbreaking. And once again, I see a bunch of fair and rodeo board members here. Once again, I want this to be a great event. You guys have done a lot of hard work. Lori, I know Big D here is here, Dwayne. We had a good conversation yesterday. I'm not going to let him ever forget that. But once again, thank you all for coming. And Katie, are you ready to come? Let's do it.
And now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce a longtime friend and leader for our region, Congressman Dan Newhouse, who represents Washington's 4th Congressional District. He is a longtime advocate for Central Washington and for our state, previously serving in the State House of Representatives and as Director of the State Department of Agriculture. Dan is a third-generation farmer and business leader and brings a deep-rooted, first-hand understanding of our area's priorities and issues to Congress. And he does so very effectively through his service on the House Committees on Appropriation, Agriculture Committee, and the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party. And Dan also serves on the appropriation subcommittees for energy and water, agriculture, and homeland security, all of which are very important to our region. These are important assignments that reflect both his influence and the respect he commands from his colleagues and from House leadership. Congressman Newhouse's strong support for our community is consistently evident in the work he does on our behalf to address all critical challenges affecting our community. He supports the growth of our future workforce. He's a champion for key funding that enables PNNL research, Hanford's cleanup mission, and our agriculture, among other things. And his advocacy and hard work not only contribute to our community, but also to our nation's economic prosperity and security. It's an honor to have him with us today. Please join me in a warm welcome for Congressman Dan Newhouse.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jamie, for that fine introduction. Appreciate that. I'm always excited to hear updates about the lab. You guys all know about the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, but I bet you if you went anywhere in downtown Tri-Cities, Sunnyside, Yakima, you name the town in the state, and asked them what happens out at the lab, a lot of people maybe wouldn't know. I think it's one of the best kept secrets in town, unfortunately. We truly, in the PNNL, I think it's out of the 17 national laboratories, have one of the most significant, important labs in the country. They do things there that impact our life, every single one of us. And so I'm just very proud to represent them and the fine people that work there. And we're trying to, as our darndest, to make sure that they continue to have the funding necessary to keep moving forward. Let me just say it's a pleasure to be with you today. It really is. I look forward to this event every year, actually. It's a good opportunity to meet a lot of people I don't see regularly, so it's good to catch up with some friends and folks in the area. But it's also, this is, as you see it build, this is an opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on in Washington, D.C., and some of the things that are important to our community. I gotta say, this is kind of you probably didn't realize I had such a large fan club, did you? Right? And I appreciate very much, this is to see the folks outside and the friends we have in the room here, just reminds me how great of a country we live in, actually. That we feel free to express our opinions. That's what makes our country great. And so it's great that people are so interested in the issues of the day, that they want to come out and show that interest and speak, to you guys. That's not just for me, that's for you too, to understand some of the issues and how they impact people and how they feel about them. So I welcome them, and I welcome all our friends in the room here as well. So this is August 27th, 2025. We've been, the new Congress has been in office now for 7.5 months. What can I say about what's happening in Washington, D.C.? It's been pretty boring, not much going on. Have to look for things to do. That's being very facetious. This is as you know, the second term of President Trump. And I guess I could say, unlike the first term, the president and his team have come in ready and anxious to get to work and get some things done. And it's been almost a whiplash time in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure around the rest of the country, because every single day there's something that comes out of the White House. And that's not really an exaggeration, wouldn't you agree? Almost every single day. A new executive order, a new something about something. And that's hard to keep up with. I appreciate you folks trying to keep up with it, but let me be honest with you. It's hard for members of Congress to keep up with it too. It really is. They don't consult the House of Representatives before they come out with an edict of some kind or an opinion, probably for good reason, but they just don't let us know ahead of time before they do things. So we have to respond and react if necessary, and learn just like the rest of us. So it has been a very busy year. It really has, and a lot of good things. A lot of good things are happening in our country. A lot of things that are happening that I think are working toward the betterment of our country on into the future. We've got some huge challenges. I don't have to point them out to you folks in the room. You know some of the challenges that we have. I'm a farmer. In fact, I should say, I was going to start out with, this is a very busy time on the farm too. We just started picking hops at home on Monday. So you're keeping me from the hop kill today, right? I got to go back at some point today. But you notice on the highways, all the apple trucks, the potato trucks, the wheat trucks. I saw a carrot truck this morning. All kinds of things happening on the farm. An important part of our economy in Central Washington. Absolutely critical. Farming today is facing some of the most challenging times I've ever seen. It really is. There's a lot of potential, but it's tough to make a profit on the farm. Cost of inputs is up. The prices that farmers are getting for the things that they produce is down, if we can find a market at all. So there's a lot of challenges there. But I'll get into some of those things later. What I want to, it's interesting. I never thought I would see this, but I can't take responsibility for this. I would not have named it this, but there's one piece of legislation that has probably occupied as much people's attention as anything over the last six or 7 months. And you know it, H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Like I said, I would not have named it that. I think that's a silly name, but it is it's a law now, it's been passed into law, covers so many different things, so many different topics of issues that are important in one piece of legislation. Covers everything from energy to agriculture to healthcare to national defense to the border, just everything you can imagine. Everything under the sun is in this one big, beautiful bill. And like all legislation, I got to admit to you, no, I've never seen anything come across the desks of Congress that's perfect. There's a lot of good stuff in it, don't get me wrong. There's a ton of good stuff that I think that we should be very, very happy that's going to be coming into effect here very soon with tax cuts. This H.R. 1 prevented the largest tax increase in our country's history from occurring. So that's something that is going to help every single household in the United States. It truly will. It will allow people to keep more money in their pockets that they otherwise would be sending to Washington, D.C. So that's huge. It did a lot of things that will help the business climate. And this is a chamber banquet, a chamber luncheon. You should know that this legislation is going to help small businesses, including farmers. Agriculture is going to be a benefit of many of the changes that have made to the tax code. Things like we call it the death tax on farms, the estate tax, allowing businesses to write off quicker, more expenses when it comes to expansion, buying new equipment, different things. It's going to allow small businesses to grow and to hire more people, which is definitely a plus in today's economy, something that we have to continue to do. But there's so many other things that this bill will do too. One of the things, Jamie mentioned the work at the lab. There's other things going on out in the Richland area. I was able to secure in the H.R. 1 some of the tax credits and treatments for nuclear energy that are going to be key to the future of our nuclear energy, not only in the Tri-Cities area, but throughout the country. And let me tell you, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I was able to bring together a small group of people that this issue is important with, and literally take these tax credits that were targeted for the nuclear industry off the cutting room floor and put them back in the bill. Otherwise, they would have received the same treatment as a lot of the other alternative energy projects that we're bound to. So that's going to, I believe, allow our area to truly emerge as one of the leading points for the nuclear industry for the entire nation. Not only will we have one of the first small modular reactors in the country, I'm confident of that, but we will be a center for the technology, the construction, all of the things that have to happen so other parts of the country can benefit from this new nuclear energy that we so desperately need. So I'm very happy about that and very proud of the fact that we were able to pull that together. Speaking of energy, it does other things that will be helpful to allow us to become energy dominant again in this country, which is key. You know, I've been driving around the district a lot lately, putting a lot of miles on my poor little Chevy Colorado. Every time I fill up the tank, and I've maybe been listening to some of the local radio stations just report on how gas prices are lower across the country than they have been in years. I think the average is like $3.15 a gallon. And I just filled up, it's diesel, so I just filled up my pickup for over $5 a gallon. I said, what the heck is going on here? Well, that's what we have the benefit of living in a beautiful state with some of the things that are challenges here in our state. But the cost of energy is truly one of those factors that makes it so difficult for businesses to be profitable. Agriculture particularly. It takes energy to move the wheels of business. It really does. So I think that's one of the things that, as a state, another issue off the federal plate, but something that we need to continue to pay attention to. As others are celebrating low gas prices, we are not. We are not. I just had last week the chairman of the Agriculture Committee in the Tri-Cities, G.T. Thompson, the chairman of the House Ag Committee, which to me is the most important committee on Capitol Hill, maybe second to Appropriations, Jamie. Helping him understand some of the challenges that we face in our industry. We got together a good group of growers who met at the experiment station down in Prosser. Showed him around some of the different agricultural operations in the area. Very important for him to see firsthand some of the challenges that we have. And he explained to the group of people that we met with in several other places the importance of passing H.R. 1 because, like I said, it had 3/4 of the Farm Bill included in it. Things that we've not been able to get done over the Farm Bill is like 2 years overdue. And because of the challenges in the agricultural space, agriculture needs a modern Farm Bill. The one we are currently working under was really put together in about 2017. And so it really has not kept up to date. So it's good to have him see some of the challenges that we face so we make sure that we meet those challenges. One of the things, and this is an issue that I've been working on for a long time, and it touches a lot of different areas that you guys have been seeing in the news, but that has to do with agricultural labor. And that touches another thing that's been very important that was addressed in H.R. 1, border security, something that was truly in a crisis situation. We had thousands of people coming across the southern and some coming across the northern borders as well. That's basically come to a standstill. Instead of thousands, it's now maybe dozens, if that, on a daily basis that are coming in. So that, the determination of this administration, and I like to give them credit where credit is due, absolutely, to be able to get a handle on our borders so we know who's coming into our country. People, we need immigration. Let me put that on the table right now. We need to have people come into our country, but I think every single American wants to know that who's coming and why they're coming. We want them to come in legally. And that's been the basis of what I've been trying to do in having G.T. Thompson come out here, who actually put together a working group last year to try to bring together some of the best ideas on how we can fix the agricultural visa program. And some of you will be shocked at me saying this, but I think in the Trump administration, even with all the things that are happening with deportations and people wanting to crack down on people coming into this country, we will have the best chance to fix agricultural visa programs that we've had in a long, long time. People understand we need workers to come into our country, not just for farms, but for almost every single part of our economy that is out there. So I'm excited about that opportunity, that work that we have in front of us. We're going to get busy on that for sure. Probably, I don't know if you call this the elephant in the room or not, but I would guess that one of the reasons our friends are outside and standing in the rain with their posters is because of some of the changes that we've made to Medicaid. Trying to reform a very important part of federal programs that people rely on, that people need. Certain segments of our population depend on Medicaid. And you know, I'm one of you. People don't like change. People are very want to change. And there's been a tremendous amount of talk and information being put out about what we've done through H.R. 1 to Medicaid. There's going to be some changes. There absolutely will, because without recognizing that changes have to be made, the program itself is at risk of failure. We just cannot continue to spend the kind of money that's been spent on Medicaid on into the future. It's going to collapse under its own weight if we don't take action. So we're trying to make the program as efficient as possible. Number one, and this has been my huge priority, is make sure every single person that qualifies for Medicaid can continue to receive the benefits of that program. That has to be a priority. There's parts, I think I have, out of the Republican conference, which is about 219 people, I think I have it's about the 5th largest number of Medicaid recipients in the entire country. About 40% of my constituents utilize Medicaid. So this is important to me. Number one district is Central California, my friend David Valadeo, his constituents, 70% of the people that depend on Medicaid. So this is not something that we're cavalier about. We're just trying to throw people off the system. We're trying to make sure the system stays in place for folks that truly need it. In our valley, in central Washington, this is a huge thing. A lot of our rural community medical providers depend on customers that come in that are covered by Medicaid. So this is very, very important. It's important for us to make sure the system can be strong. So some of the changes that were made to that program are to help it continue to be strong into the future. One of them is work requirements. For single able-bodied adults without kids, there's now work requirements, or I call it more community engagement requirements, where you can either apply for a job, work 20 hours a week, you can volunteer at any particular place in your community that needs volunteer work, or you can work toward getting an education so you can be employable. Trying to get people into the workforce, getting them engaged in the community, instead of them taking the spot of someone who can't do that needs that Medicaid dollar spent on them instead of on somebody that's able-bodied. So that kind of encouragement, I think, will be positive. You know, people in this country, we respect and revere the work ethic. We want to encourage people to be productive. We need them to be productive in our communities, so instead of being reliant on the government. And so I think this is, in the long run, going to be a positive thing. And that's just one of the tenets that's been somewhat, people are saying we're going to be throwing people off the program. That's not true. That is not true. Much of the information that's been put out there about that in particular is just false. I listened, and I'm sure all of you stay glued to C-SPAN during legislative or congressional sessions. The minority leader of the Democrats, we have something during debate called the magic minute. You know, most of us, rank and file, we get a minute to speak on something. The majority leader, the speaker, a couple of the leadership get what's called a magic minute, which his magic minute turned into, I think, 8 3/4 hours, something like that. Throughout that speech, I'm sorry, losing my voice. Throughout that speech, he gave example after example after example of people that were going to be without medical coverage because of Republicans, what we were doing. And this story is being told throughout the country by a lot of people, even in our state. And I listened to what he had to say. And every single example that he used, those people will still be covered. They will not have their medical services taken away from them. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, you'd be surprised at this. In a lot of things that we do in Congress, politics enters into the picture. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in some respects that people are being scared and then used. If they're scared enough, they're going to vote the other way next November, perhaps. And that's unfortunately what's driving a lot of what you hear in the news and what people are saying. So that's kind of the seamy side of politics. And it's one of the parts that I don't necessarily, thank you, Ashley, appreciate that. That I don't necessarily enjoy, but that's the way it is, that's reality, and so we deal with that. Excuse me. A lot of things, other things are going on as well. If I could just speak for a minute, I mentioned our energy system here. In the last administration, there were a lot of efforts made to work towards breaching the Snake River dams. A lot of things were being done that truly left out many important players that should be a part of that discussion. This administration has taken a different turn there to stop that process, to protect the dams, because we need them. We need to have that hydroelectric energy. We need to have that baseload carbon-free power on into the future. And so I'm very happy about that. Like I said, give credit where credit is due. The Trump administration has done the right thing there, and they've listened to people in the Pacific Northwest on how important the hydroelectric system is to our communities. That does not let us off the hook as far as it relates to salmon. We still have to work as hard as we can to make sure salmon can not just survive, but they have to thrive. And those are easy words to say, but that's expensive stuff to carry out, as you know. But I want to tell you, we are seeing tremendous success. Numbers are improving on salmon returns. And so I'm very happy about that. I'm very confident in when I say this, that dams and salmon can and do coexist. And we have to make sure that that stays true every single day. As I told you, I was in Quincy and Moses Lake. They are looking at power shortages right now. Some of these server farms and AI that are coming in, they've been kind of a hub for some of those installations. They need more power for that and for other things, just like processing plants and other things like that. They don't have enough. It makes zero sense to me for us to be removing a clean source of renewable power like hydro. But that's my soapbox there. You know where I stand on the dams. I think we need to do everything we can to protect them. Another thing that's going on, I was just delighted to be able to announce this a couple weeks ago, that the Veterans Affairs Committee announced that an investment will be made in the Tri-Cities of $48 million to build a veterans clinic right here, a much needed veterans clinic in the Tri-Cities. And I think, although I think it could grow, I think the number of veterans that's going to impact in this area is something like 16,000. Which is going to be a huge, huge benefit to make sure that those people, those individuals that served our country, that wore our country's uniform, that we take care of them when they need us. And so I'm very, very happy about that particular development. Lots of other things going on too. One of the things I'm truly focused on a lot, because when I was director of agriculture, I learned and knew very well that the state of Washington is the most trade-dependent state in the nation. We're the closest to the Pacific Rim of the lower 48. A lot of the things that we produce here, from apples to airplanes and everything in between, is exported. We need to have good trade deals in place. So you can imagine in an area. And frankly, there was a ton of support here in Central Washington for President Trump and his reelection. And there still is. But my farmer friends are getting very concerned about their ability to export. They need to have access to foreign markets. There's only so many apples we can eat. I would admonish every single one of you to eat more apples, okay? And then being a hop farmer, I guess I can say, drink more beer. Can you do that? Or eat more cherries and all those things, right? We have to do our part as well. But trade deals are key. They truly are. There's some good news coming out about some of those. Some I just saw today between Canada and the United States, which is a good development. But South Korea and Japan, and we got to keep Mexico. They're a huge, huge trading partner. I'm hopeful that the United States and China can regain an economic relationship that is so important to our country overall, not just the agricultural community. But this is, as you know, a focus of the president. He likes to deal with every single country individually instead of multilateral kind of trade deals. He wants to just be one-to-one, which is fine, I guess, but it takes time, right? And we need these things soon. So